Well, it's really exciting.
It was a great trailer.
Yeah.
It was a really great trailer.
It definitely was. I felt more positive after that than the other two.
I think it was
released.
just from a filmmaking perspective, from an editing perspective.
Yes.
Much better trailer.
I
much
agree.
more exciting. Much more atmospheric.
Still not really giving a lot away.
Yes. Yeah, and certainly not more than we saw in a lot of the other trailers. Like more maybe different shots, but same scenes. I'm excited for it. I'm looking forward to watching it.
My general feeling kind of still holds where it's like two things. I'm much more optimistic for this season just as a piece of television. Just being better and that. I remember the trailer. I remember feeling relatively positive about the trailer 2 years ago, but it was 2 years ago. It's hard to really remember.
Yeah.
But it looks like that's another step up from what they did before. So it'll be interesting to see. I'm still have my concerns of it with it as an adaptation and what that'll actually look like, and at least how I will feel about it. But like we've talked about this separately. I'm gonna try to just blank slate it and take it in as not really. Like almost just receive it as like it's just like riffing on this is just a fantasy show and this is a Sauron-like guy. Galadriel-like person.
Well, we'll see. Maybe
we'll see. And maybe it'll be better than that. I'm not gonna write it off. But I don't know.
But when did we decide to roll the R for Sauron?
I think
there were some rolled R's, weren't there? In the trilogy?
I don't think that Cate Blanchett ever rolled the R.
I think the elves did. I think the elves do.
I mean, Galadriel must have decided to stop at some point.
Like, because Boromir doesn't. You will take the ring to Sauron. He doesn't. He definitely doesn't roll that R.
Well, he's got that northern accent.
Exactly. Yeah.
But yeah, I don't think Galadriel does roll the R.
Does she ever say Sauron?
She does. It's in the narration.
Oh, in the
very
narration.
Beginning.
Yeah.
I feel like Gandalf doesn't he? At some point, doesn't.
I don't know. This has been bothering me.
He has covered all the
This has
lands
been
with the second
that
darkness.
honestly has been bothering me the most about the entire show is that they're rolling the R.
There are
for Sauron.
more rolled R's than. There are rolled R's in Elvish, but it is like
And also, where's Galadriel's husband? Like, why is he not?
I bet Celeborn will be in this.
I think he's going to be in
season.
it. I think her daughter. I think her daughter will be in it.
They're
too.
waiting to
Her
reveal.
daughter is also Elrond's wife, Arwen's mom. So like
Nice.
Celebrian. I think they both will be in this season.
Maybe they get together in this season.
Well, they're already married. That was in the last season.
So
Elrond. My bad.
Any
Elrond, my bad.
hot takes to edit into the rest of the episode?
Yeah.
I don't feel many hot takes, if I'm being honest.
Sauron looks a little different this season.
Yes,
he does. But
hey,
I
long
like
hair.
I like it.
We're getting long hair.
I will say too. I think Charlie Vickers in the first season, honestly, and in the stuff we've seen, it looks like he's giving an amazing performance.
Yeah.
Who was Halbrand and is now Sauron. So that's something.
Is it the same actor?
It's the same actor. Yeah.
Oh,
yeah.
he doesn't
It is the same
doesn't
actor.
even
not
look the same. Yeah.
Which is
They've
cool.
done a great job. He's also like carrying himself very differently. It's pretty exciting. But I've unleashed like a lot of negativity or frustration about it. So I've kind of exercised that demon at least until I'm actually watching it. So we'll see how that goes.
That's good.
But
Hey,
no,
listen, look at us. Look at us. We've grown. That's very good.
But overall, that trailer. That's a very. I think it's a very.
I feel like they're
going
to explain the old elf too. A little
I
bit.
hope
the trailer
so.
is like,
The
look at my
recast old
face,
elf,
and then his face
Bedard.
looks like even more.
I am a little weirded out that he's working with Galadriel, and I get they both hate Sauron, but I'm curious what's going on there.
I guess that's one thing, and I don't want to cast aspersions on the new actor, and it's obviously way too early to say, but I miss the guy that played him in the original season that's gone now. He was phenomenal.
Yeah. I'm really curious why he left too, because it was another one. Him and the Bronwyn lady both left under sort of awkward.
Yeah,
it was weird vibes. So
yeah,
it's hard to tell.
It
actors.
is hard to tell. I know.
So I went on an adventure this last weekend.
Yes.
Yes, you did.
So my mom and I drove out to McMinnville, Tennessee.
Your mom went too. That's
She did.
amazing.
Yeah, it was awesome. It was a phenomenal mother-son adventure. And we went to the second annual Tennessee Wildman and Cryptid Con.
I don't know why I put second annual.
I know.
I thought it was,
You've done this twice?
I thought it was the first annual. Like they were saying, like it's gonna happen again.
No, this was the second annual. I missed it last year. I can't remember if I found out about it.
Was it the first annual last year?
Yes.
The first annual?
The first annual.
Oh.
Yeah,
Yeah, the first
hey,
annual.
they were putting it out there. They were
weird.
we are going to be back. This is going to be a
I
thing.
wonder how many times they'll attribute a numerical value to it. Like this is the 10th annual.
Hey, I'm sure forever. It's at some point.
Yeah.
It's got to celebrate your victories, but
Yeah. Okay.
But yeah, so second annual Tennessee Wildman and Cryptid Con, and
What do they even talk about?
I'm a huge fan of cryptids, which, if you're unfamiliar with the term, is any unexplained creature, Bigfoot, Sasquatch being the most famous, but things like Nessie, Mothman, the Dogman here in Tennessee is another one. Chupacabra, those are all cryptids. Any animal that is unexplained by science. I'm wearing my Sasquatch shirt. I don't know if you can see it on the camera.
That's
actually
honestly
hadn't noticed it.
great. Is that from the
No,
conference?
this I got up in Oregon.
I
does
was gonna say, I was
Sasquatch-
impressed with the art of the conference.
Sasquatch has titties.
Yeah, dude.
I
Hell
mean,
yeah.
isn't it human adjacent? Like,
Yeah. Hey, have
Yeah,
you
but-
watched the Patterson Gimlin footage? That's one of the big
Yeah, true.
things that they attribute to this. No, look at this being a real creature. Look at those tits. Those
Yeah.
can't be fake.
Yeah, I know, right?
those are some real.
So,
real
but anyways, so we went. We drove out
Those aren't
there.
fake.
Yeah. We were
I
there
didn't get
for
a boob job for this. These
no,
are, these
please,
are all natural.
please, all
baby.
natural.
Yeah.
But we were there for a number of the speakers. The first pair of gentlemen were speaking on the Tennessee Wildman, which I had not heard of that specific story before. It was a Sasquatch-esque creature that supposedly there's newspaper articles and things from the time in the late 1800s that was caught here in Tennessee and took like 5 guys on horseback trying to like literally all day chasing it down, wearing it out before they could toss nets over it and catch it,
Dang.
which is pretty cruel,
Yeah.
but a very human response, I think. And then they took it
gotta
up
catch
to.
this thing, yeah.
They were trying to figure out what it was, so they took it up to like 3 or 4 different doctors in Louisville, all of whom were just like, I don't know what it is.
Yeah, because Louisville has the
Right.
top-notch doctors.
Yeah,
in
for
the
sure.
area.
But they had no idea what it was, so and then it just kind of disappeared. But there's records of it in newspaper articles from Louisville and such at the time.
Interesting.
And then there's they were also talking about the Tennessee.
Was it just a man-shaped?
It was like it was a giant. It was essentially
a gorilla
your
looking
typical Bigfoot, tall, covered in hair. The kind of distinctive thing was that apparently the parts that were exposed skin were very scaly. They described it as like rattlesnake skin, but almost
The lizard
more like
people.
if it was probably not lizard, but more like scabies or some like
Okay.
skin disease that was
Interesting.
making the skin all flaky and nasty.
Wow.
So very fun story. The other thing those first 2 guys talked about that was pretty fun and interesting, although not as goofy as I expected it to be, was the phenomenon that I had not heard of before of the Tennessee pygmies.
Okay. I, for some reason, have heard this.
Yeah, well, so I expected this to just go off the rails immediately, and it got there
Yeah,
eventually.
yeah.
But they're actually I
So
need to.
there's like, a really sober-minded pygmy story in
Well, there is
Yeah.
in a way, and I need to delve further into the article. It's very academic, so it's kind of a slow read. But even I found on the Tennessee.gov website, there's a long state archaeological paper that has a section of it devoted to the Tennessee pygmies, and what it was again back in the 1800s, out in McMinnville and in a couple other places. They, on these mountains, found these. I think in McMinnville it was a cemetery. In other places there was a mass graves, but they were slate-lined graves that had these tiny little 2-foot bodies are skeletons in them.
So,
but not babies' bodies.
Well, I guess it's kind of hard to tell, but they were going off of the way that their skulls were shaped and stitched together, made it appear to be adult skulls.
So what is a
2 foot?
pygmy?
Pygmy is just a very small human.
Person.
There's tribes in Africa. There's that I'm not going to remember the scientific name for it, but there was in the Philippines or Indonesia or Papua New Guinea, somewhere in there, they found they called them the hobbits. That's like the nickname for them, but there is a scientific name. But they were long since extinct, but there was a race of tiny people that lived there.
Interesting.
So that it could have been something like that from long ago, but it's another one of those where they kind of got shipped to museums and then never seen again. So where it kind of went off the rails is, people claiming to see them off the side of Highway 70.
They're still out there.
In the middle of the night.
I mean, they're really small. It's easy to hide.
2 foot tall leprechaun like dudes wearing trash for clothes. Diving for cover in the ditch.
That feel the need to go to the interstate that day.
But and then there was an alien discussion.
Yeah.
That was fun. It was all stories that I had heard. There was nothing local. The closest one was up in Hopkinsville, Kentucky, and ironically enough, last podcast on the left had just done a series on this, the Hopkinsville Goblins. So that's just a fun story. A bunch of just rednecks trapped in their cabin with these goblin-looking aliens showing up, and of course, being rednecks, they just start blasting, and a shotgun would knock the little goblin creatures away, but it sounded like shooting off metal, and it was just completely bulletproof, and just terrorized this family.
If I was an alien, I would definitely mess with the rednecks first.
As long as you're bulletproof, because there's one answer that's going to happen.
It seems like that's the type. They're like all these they have a demographic of people they like. They have an affinity for. Yeah,
moonshiners.
But there's a lot of people on this planet, but those guys, I think I'm gonna go try to expose myself to them.
I think I bet it's like thrill seeking.
Yeah.
Like we're gonna go and actually the whole point is to get shot with the shotgun.
Yeah. That was awesome. That was fun. I'll come back. I'll tell all my friends for literally 300 years.
Yeah.
Yeah.
And then there was the fellow that talked about Bigfoot and his own personal experiences with Bigfoot, and one.
Is there just the one?
No, it's a whole species.
A lot of Bigfoots.
Yeah, a lot of them, and
Big
apparently
feet,
a lot of them here in Tennessee.
Yeah,
according to these
tracks
fellas.
with the mountains, right?
Well, I have my doubts. I honestly, if I'm going to be honest here, I kind of believe that Sasquatch is a real thing.
Yeah.
I believe that it is probably up in the Pacific Northwest, up into Canada.
Yeah.
Not in Tennessee.
Yeah.
But, this guy had some very fun stories. He was making some very interesting, trying to draw some distinctions between Sasquatch and what he called the forest people, both kind of fitting under the Bigfoot term, but Sasquatch being more aggressive and territorial, and the forest people being more welcoming and being open to interactions with people. I wanted to ask this question, but somebody else literally came in and asked a less scientific version of it. But I wanted to ask, so is this when you make this distinction, is this a species difference? Are these two separate species or subspecies of Bigfoot, or is this more like a cultural thing that
some are chill and some are not chill?
Right. Yeah. And somebody asked a less intense version of that question, and I honestly don't remember. It was vaguely the same question, but
tell me what's the difference between the one that are killer and the one that are not killers?
Yeah, it didn't. It was close to that. It didn't really answer the question that I wanted, but that's okay.
It's unfortunate. I love that there's academic papers on this stuff.
Sure, man. Yeah. No, all over the place. And there's a lot.
Seriously.
I mean, the one thing that I will say that I found very interesting. I mean, let me be straight. I had a great time.
Yeah.
I absolutely loved it. It was great spending time with my mom. But I love these stories. I don't give a shit if any of it's real. I don't care. It's so much fun.
Yeah.
And it was great to be in a room full of like actual true believers where everybody asking a question. Like nobody was trying to pull anybody's leg.
Yeah.
Nobody's trying to pull one over on somebody else. They were just there to talk about this stuff that they loved and ask very serious questions.
Did they have like small group breakouts and stuff?
Well, they had like Q&As and everything, and there was also a big vendor hall and food trucks and stuff. So
That's
it was
cool.
a big deal, and I'll 100% be going back next year.
I love it.
And I look forward to
Honestly,
seeing how
I
it grows.
think
But
we should go.
hell yeah, dude!
The whole
Yeah.
podcast should go.
Absolutely.
Because this is great.
But
My dad
one thing I'll close this on, one cool thing, because I kind of never understood like why Tennessee would be like a hotbed for this kind of activity supposedly. And one thing that got brought up several times that I hadn't thought about in this exact way before, but in Tennessee, especially the farther east you go, once you get over to the Cumberland Plateau and such, that we have the most, I believe we have the most caves and cave systems, the largest, most extensive cave systems anywhere in the country.
That tracks. I mean, I went in so many caves as a kid. Just
Oh yeah.
yeah.
Well, it's
There
because
was
it's
there.
all limestone. Because this was an ocean forever,
Yeah.
and as it went away, these limestone caverns and everything just
Solid.
got
Yeah.
carved out. So who knows what's down there? And
I
then
mean,
you
that's
have
a great hiding spot for the Bigfoots.
Yeah.
You know, can
Well,
they see in the dark though? Like,
maybe, who
I
knows?
don't know. We haven't caught one
Yeah.
apparently since the 1800s.
No.
You know?
And but then the other thing that's kind of cool is all the way to the east we have the Appalachian Mountains, and those are the oldest mountain range in the world.
Nice.
There's a cool website I saw someone make a video where you can like put in your address and it shows your place on the globe, and then you can slide a scale from present time all the way back to like 650 million years ago and watch where your home ends up through as the plates are shifting.
Dang.
And the Appalachian Mountains, outside of a few thousands of years where they're underwater, they go all the way back.
Wow.
That same exact mountain range.
They just stay.
So they're literally older than bones.
yeah,
They're older than multicellular organisms.
in the world.
Yeah.
Yeah.
So like, I'm not a believer in much of anything, but
if
I
you're
have
an ancient primordial being.
well, and
And
just
has
also
like a
like
place that never changes. It makes sense that you would just kind of stay around that, right?
energy stays around,
Yeah.
and you want to talk, that place is so old that anything you can think of has happened there.
Yeah.
And so it's just a very interesting and very old place.
It's like
and
the multiverse is real over there.
who knows, man?
Grandma playing
if
Uno
it's
over there probably happened.
probably,
Yeah.
yeah. So it was fun. It was a great day. We had a great time, and I ate rattlesnake. That was fun.
Yeah. How many different types of animals did you eat there? Didn't
5.
You, yeah, you
I
said
ate 5
Yeah.
for lunch.
In one sitting?
Yep.
Did
I mean,
was
not 5 whole animals.
Was
but
it agreeable inside your
Yeah.
system?
Yeah,
Dang.
dude, yeah, worked
Well,
out.
I mean, that's carnivore for you.
Were the people there all? It was like, obviously everyone was taking Bigfoot and everything seriously, but I'm sort of the mindset of like Bigfoot and especially like aliens and stuff and flying saucers is maybe being like hyper real, super spectral type somethings. Was everybody taking it very literally, like this is just an animal that we don't know where it is?
Yes.
Or was it more? Because I know some people with like Bigfoot is like a spirit thing too.
I think
I've
there were
heard
some
before.
people that would have gone in that kind of spiritual interdimensional being
Yeah.
version of Bigfoot, but the way that the speakers were talking about it was that this is a species of creature.
Great ape.
It's
Or,
I mean they would say that it's a
I was like, what? What?
gray apes at the Cryptid Con.
Yeah, nobody came up with that. They're real things. I
But
mean,
you know what's
honestly,
crazy?
they'd
I
be
mean, what's
close.
crazy is there was Gigantopithecus. That was a creature that we know existed, and it was a massive, like 10-foot tall ape,
Like the
and it
anglerborn.
lived in North America,
Yeah.
and it had coexisted. It lived here at the same time that humans did. So at the very least, all of the like native legends behind Bigfoot
Have
and
that as a
Sasquatch,
real thing.
yeah, because it's at the very least it's ancestral memory. But who knows? Did that die out completely, or did it do what a lot of species did and just evolved into smaller, more compact versions of itself? And
Yeah.
went deeper into the woods.
I mean, those caves, they're deep.
They're deep.
They're real deep down there. Nobody goes, because why would you?
So Tennessee Wildman Encrypted Con. Great
I
time.
love it.
Love it. Wow.
Howdy. Welcome. Mike O'Vannon. This is Undertowers Podcast. My name is Steven.
I'm Daniel.
Sam.
And we've talked enough. I'm just going to breeze through a little bit of news for this episode before we get into our main topic. We're all dads. We're all girl dads. So my house, and I know yours is, Sam, are full of Disney. And D23 just happened with the big Disney Expo. Honestly, most of the stuff that was announced was sequels, which,
Right.
okay. Toy Story 5, love Toy Story, that's fine. The ones I was excited about, obviously, for my house, and I think I speak for you as well, Frozen 3.
Yeah.
But Incredibles 3 was announced. That'll be a lot of fun, I'm sure.
A lot less time between the other, it hasn't been 11 years, right, since the last one?
No,
I
that
haven't
was like 2019,
I
I
don't
think.
think
Yeah,
I
so
ever
we're-
saw the second
We're
one.
kind of on time for another one. Yeah.
Absolutely. And then Zootopia 2, Zootopia was great.
It was.
So that will be a lot of fun,
It
I'm
is.
sure. And then the only other things that I was kind of excited about, because there's, of course, the live action remakes and things that are happening, but I have not seen the trailer because they haven't released the official copy, and I frankly don't want to just watch somebody's cell phone video, but Daredevil Born Again is coming.
Really? Is Ben Affleck back?
No, it's
Dang
the Charlie.
It's the guy who was in the show.
What's his name?
No.
It's the whole
The other
Netflix.
show.
He's perfect. Yeah.
It's the whole Netflix cast,
My
including.
Ben Affleck comment was a joke.
I know it was a
Yeah,
joke,
it was a joke. I was kidding about that.
but the John Bernthal, my Punisher's one of my favorites, and he's back. In this
Really?
season. Yeah.
The dude from Walking Dead.
Yep.
Yeah.
Yep.
Oh, he's
He's so good. He absolutely
I
nailed
wish
it.
I wish he was in more things. We should cast him and stuff.
I agree.
And our fake casting.
He's phenomenal. And then Andor season 2.
Right.
I am
is on its
excited
way.
for that.
That's my favorite Star Wars thing in recent memory. So, so that's the news. And before we get to tonight's topic, a word from our sponsor.
Is your baby giving you the creeps? Do you wish they had?
Listen up.
Listen.
Listen.
Do you wish they had an evil twin? Changeling Biogenics Artificial Insemination Sperm Bank and Eugenics Service is on the cutting edge of all things fertility and medicine.
Wow.
With our state-of-the-art troll breed hogs,
And doctors in Louisville, right? It's a clinic in Louisville for sure.
we can have any unchristened baby changed in a matter of moments. Think of it as a boarding school for your biological children and a whole new child to love at home. And a child that has no soul at that.
Wow.
Changeling Biogenic Artificial Insemination Sperm Bank and Eugenics Service now has a wide range of prefab babies to choose from, so you don't have to just keep your same old genes around. Willing donors have supplied a full array to choose from our troll wombs to their baby. From our troll wombs to their baby nursery bedrooms. Changeling Biogenic Artificial Insemination Sperm Bank and Eugenics Service, C-Babies for short, can fill the void in both your heart and your home. Thank you to. I gotta pull it up.
It's okay.
Thank you to Changeling Biogenics Artificial Insemination and Sperm Bank and Eugenics Service for sponsoring our podcast today.
Thank you, Sea Babies, and as always,
Which is actually what the
It's a
code
acronym.
Undertowers for 10% off your first purchase of a evil twin soulless baby.
yes.
That's some of the finest facilities in Louisville, Kentucky.
Some of the finest troll wombs in Louisville, Kentucky. Oh my God!
I've been to the troll breed hog pens. They took me up there.
Yeah.
You did a
And
tour
it
of
is
tour of the
astounding.
facilities.
They treat them better than you'd think. Too.
That's good. As you would hope.
They seem like they really
this
know
is
their
2000. This
They
is
really know their
2024.
Yeah, it's a different age.
It is. Oh my God.
And, I
Okay.
mean, we've all been creeped out by our baby before. So.
Okay. All right. So, thank you for that.
You're welcome.
Our main
Thank
topic
you,
tonight.
sea babies.
We're in book club. We have reached the end of our sword and sorcery / heroic fantasy
Journey.
our journey. Part 1. It's a never-ending journey at this point. We've all fallen madly in love with this subgenre. So to kind of round out things for ourselves, not that this is the last time you guys are going to be hearing about it on the show, we are going to be discussing tonight what is arguably one of, if not the first sword and sorcery short story ever written.
Yes.
There is some debate, depending on like anything in nerd circles. There's a debate about it, but this is we'll
Except
say
that Star
there's
Wars is perfect.
yes,
right?
right. But this is at the very least one of the very first sword and sorcery shorts.
If nothing else, I think it's like proto.
I mean,
If
I would argue
nothing
it.
else,
I
I think it
think
is.
it's I think it's sword and sorcery very much.
do.
But do you have the actual title? I don't have it
Yes,
written down in front
so,
of me. It's an amazing and long title.
Yeah, so the story we're reading is Lord Dunsany's The Fortress Unvanquishable, except for Sacnoth.
Which is
Yeah.
sick. And
It is. It's like saying, like, it's the best burger ever unless you have had a McDonald's burger.
but that's argument. Honestly, that is argument number 1 for me, that this is a sword and sorcery story.
Yeah.
Because that is one of the most sword and sorcery titles that
Yeah.
I've ever heard.
Yeah.
Yeah.
It's
Just
great.
the Fortress Unvanquishable.
Yes, it is.
Is already by itself a sword and sorcery title.
I do love the little like except for it's like wait what?
No, that's the thing.
I know.
Like unbeatable,
Yeah,
except for
Sacnoth.
Sacnoth's a great
Which
name,
and then again,
Moral,
yet again,
unless-
Sacnoth, 100%
A sword and sorcery.
a sword and sorcery name.
Yeah.
Yes.
So before we go any further, like a spoiler warning, but this is an almost this is a 150 plus year old story. So like
110 years.
110
years.
And it only takes you 40 minutes.
it's a 110 year old story.
40
So
minutes
like
to listen to it.
Yeah.
spoiler, okay. But you can, if you want to read it first before we have our discussion, you can find it online for free to read.
It
There's
is
also an
public
awesome,
domain, right?
yeah, it is for sure. And there's also a great audiobook that we listened to.
Yes, you
a
could,
reading
there was a
on-
great
It's
one
on
YouTube.
Wikipedia.
Yeah.
So yeah, the
Yeah.
full book is on
Yeah.
Wikipedia, and then YouTube has some great readings of it. So Daniel, you brought this to our attention. How about will you tell us a little bit about Lord Dunsany?
Yeah, to give a little
Are we
background.
gonna do is this like a spoiler-free bit? And then,
Yeah,
I mean,
we'll
this
do-
part is, but
do some-
like I
yeah.
said, it's a 110-year-old story. So like,
So yeah.
Yeah.
pause
we'll-
it and read it if you would like to. But we're just gonna kind of go and riff off of
love it.
this awesome little short story here.
But to do a little background on Dunsany, he was an actual Irish lord. He'd like lived most of his life in a castle, like an actual castle that you can like visit and take tours of.
You go to Lord Dunsany's house.
yeah.
pretty much, yeah.
And that, like, I believe in 1899, his father passed, and then he was made the actual like lord, and he was like part of the Irish House of Lords and the whole shebang. So like, an actual part of the established parliament and everything, and voted and all this stuff. And then basically in his spare time wrote fairy stories and little things. He published 90 books of poetry, poems, and that. So he was a prolific writer. One of the things I thought that was really interesting was almost everything published by him was a first draft.
Really? Save for Sacnoth.
And
actually makes
and
sense.
especially like,
Gracious.
and reading some of his stuff, the language is so beautiful.
Yeah.
And it's like, and he was just like, it's like, and I don't know, he just had a gift for language, and that's what it is. And then also, it seemed to be it feels like reading. I've read a little bit more of his stuff. King of Elfland's Daughter is one of his most famous. I've read that, and I've read a little bit of his Gods of Pagana, which is his first published work, which is a story where he basically invents a pantheon of gods.
Nice.
It's really cool.
As you do.
And the stories in that are very short. A lot of them are like one little page. And it's just like little like just so stories, basically. Like one is about a god who drums all the time. Yeah. But he did that, and then also like as he wrote a lot of this, he fought in World War I, volunteered, got shot in the head, healed up, and got back out there. Yeah,
What a stud.
I know. And then
What?
wrote a bunch. His
Wait,
story,
but
yeah. He didn't
got
get
shot in
like
the head?
not in the brain, but like in the head.
like the way Trump got shot in the head.
I guess something like that, but I think,
Okay, yeah.
but to the point where he was actually hospitalized.
Yeah.
because like Trump just kind of got on with it.
Well,
No.
I'm just saying, shot in the head.
Shot in the head.
Shot in
That
the head.
usually means
Not
dead.
just yeah,
No,
it does
usually
for
means
sure.
Dead, yeah.
So I don't know grazed or if it went in the brain, but only like a safe part of the brain. I don't know.
Oh, this part you can shoot me all day here. That's good.
But yeah.
I'll roll. I'll roll with it.
And then he was part of the National Irish and like the Home Guard during World War II, and he would have been in his 50s.
Nice.
So he wasn't doing like active service, but
I
did
mean,
that.
Druss was in his 60s, so that
I know.
makes sense.
So
That
yeah,
tracks,
exactly. It tracks.
He was ready.
And then beyond that, I know he was an English professor in both Athens and Istanbul, and that was actually when World War I started, and World War II started, excuse me, and he had to get like extradited, and he wrote a series of poems on his like crazy multi-country like voyage.
Could you imagine having a
out of-
professor and you don't call him doctor, you call him Lord?
Lord Professor.
Yeah.
He doesn't even have a PhD, but he's like a king. I
it's
don't know.
awesome.
Like,
For everything else I read about him, and which is not exhaustive, like he seemed to be a stand-up guy as well. So, and then
And wildly influential is one other thing we should mention.
Yes.
Lovecraft.
Yep.
Robert E. Howard.
yeah, you
talked
can't
about
you
him.
can't read this story without being like,
You've
seen
seen
this before.
Yeah,
100%.
Yeah.
Tolkien,
All of it.
Jack Vance,
Yeah.
I know Gene Wolfe literally uses one of his poems for Wizard Night.
Yeah.
So essentially all of the authors that we love and that have been rocking our world forever, and specifically for the last year, Lord Dunsany, and I will mention, perhaps we're mispronouncing it. I've heard Dunsany and Dunsany, but Dunsany kind of rolls off the tongue. So
Yeah.
Yeah.
We're gonna just kind of go with
we're
that.
just gonna go with it. But yeah, he influenced all of these incredible writers that have had a massive impact on us. So what a treat to read some of his work. How did you come across this one in particular?
So I have a collection of his books, and it was because I recently found those Robert E. Howard paperbacks in an Everyman or Little Library, and so I was Googling information about when because these books were published in the 70s, but written obviously much before. Just reading a little bit about Robert E. Howard. And somewhere in there, a little blurb came up that, like, some people say that Robert E. Howard wrote the first Sword and Sorcery Story, The Shadow Kingdom, which is a King Kull story that was published, I believe, in 1929, and I think written the year or so before that. But that's what a lot of people consider the first, like, this is Sword and Sorcery. But then there was, like, other people actually say it's this story by Lord Dunsany called The Fortress Unvanquishable, except for Sacnoth. So I went to it's in my e-reader, pulled it up, and I was like, wait, there's supposed to be every story in here. So then I found it, and I was like, well, I'm just going to read this. And then started reading it, and it was like, this is awesome.
Yeah,
Man.
it jumps right in, and it does, like, really. It's like it's like you've read this before, but also it has such fresh ideas in it that you're like, I've never heard this before.
Yes, it was
And we
very
can talk
much
about it in a
both.
second,
Well,
but seriously, it does grab you.
One thing I
start.
found interesting stylistically
Yes.
is that, right now for book club we're in the middle of reading L'Amour d'Arthur by Thomas Mallory, and we're also reading the Mabinogion. Obviously both of those were written long before
Yes.
before this and before Lord Dunsany was even writing, but there's I thought a kind of similarity in tone and in the writing style.
Yes.
So I don't know
But also way more modern.
100%. Yeah, but it was again, and that's why I say tone before style, because it's not that he's using the same kind of archaic language, but there was a way of telling the story that reminded me of that kind of older writing style that came from an oral tradition.
Yes.
First.
Well, and it's a lot of a lot of this Dunsany stuff that I've read is all fairy tale, very fairy tale. But then he's adding irony into it and some more mature themes, and obviously a lot of the fairy tales are also dark, but maybe a more modern intensity and sensibility and darkness to it, which comes up in this. What's crazy to me was reading it is because it goes so fast. There's just so much stuff crammed in this.
Yeah, no,
if you just roll,
I can't wait to talk about a couple things.
If you just roll past it, you're like, wait, he just said something like, if you sit and think about it, it's like, that's insane.
Yeah.
What I just read.
Yeah.
But you just could read and just keep going, and it's just like, whatever.
Yeah.
Yeah. No, I had to listen to it twice. I listened to it last night, and then I listened to it again this afternoon because in my listening last night, I was like, I am loving this, but I for sure am not catching everything.
I missed something.
Yeah.
I would like to add a note on this.
Yeah.
It is fascinating, and inside of book club and this story specifically, reading these old things and seeing how the language has changed in years.
It's crazy.
And then also realizing like the relevant change that's happening now, even between like Generation X, millennials, and then Gen Z, like how like things are changing, mostly driven by social media and how people are responding to things on there. But like we can see a real-time change in our language, and then rewind literally 300 years. You can we're reading this and they're writing this way. It's like the evolution of language is felt now, seen in retrospect, and then like projecting forward is like what's the 300 years from now? What are they going to be writing?
Right. What are they when they look back on?
What are they going to be thinking? And it's like somehow translated to like a social media post or something. Like it's
right.
It's fascinating to see.
Truly.
But it feels like things are getting less beautiful.
It feels that way.
That's kind of what I'm like trying to get at.
Even looking at this versus the way that we talk now, it's like, oh man.
Yeah. Like, are we getting dumber? Like everything sounds so stupid now.
Yeah, we've regressed significantly.
Yeah,
because
it's not a fun thing. But then I also I feel like there's a reset somewhere in there. Because like I feel like even before these dudes were writing, people were kind of illiterate before that. So it's like, is that coming too? Like a reset or
I don't know.
A higher sort of thinking, or are lizard people just going to take over?
Probably that one.
Yeah, that one.
Probably that one for sure. Well, let's get into it.
So the story opens, and one of the things I like is it says there's this town called Alathurion, and it's nestled in this wood. And he goes out of his way to say it was right up on the edge of the wood, and the little note I loved that was like there was moss growing on the thatched roofs to where you couldn't really distinguish the village from the trees.
Mm-hmm.
And
so they were eco-conscious.
Kind of basically.
It was
a
great detail.
And I note that because it's like right in the first couple sentences where like this story is just constantly great details. But that town opens, and then basically it turns out that this town has been plagued by bad dreams. Mm-hmm. They're trying to figure it out. And then as it goes, there's the mayor of the town who's like, okay, I'm going to try to figure something out. Basically, the dreams are making people sick, and it's somehow infecting them with thoughts from hell, and they start worshiping Satan, basically.
Yeah. Yeah, boo, Satan, boo.
I've seen that happen before, yeah.
Yeah.
All these people that are like, I don't know how to dream, and I just like drew this pentagram the next day.
Just because I have a bad dream.
Yeah.
So they're like, we got to do something with these dreams. The magician of the town says, I'm going to do a spell against the dreams so they don't stop.
Because everybody knows who the magician of the town is.
Yeah, 100%. He's the magician of the town.
He's the magician. Yeah.
I love he's not named.
It's in the fucking name. Magician of the town.
I live in Smyrna, and the magician of the town is obviously going to be...
Yeah, the magician of the town.
Yeah.
And then it's one of the great notes, too.
It's Brett. It's Brett. He's over there.
The magician comes up with the spell to combat the dreams, and it's a 40-line spell in both living and dead languages.
Yes.
And every line ends with a rhyme for wasp.
Yeah.
Which is like, okay.
Which is like, I was like, when I read that, I was like, man, this is the laziest way to write a poem ever. Like, trust me, it's sick. It's like 40 lines. And I'm not going to say all of it, but it rhymes with wasp.
Is that going to be the next, are you going to write that out for the next Horsebread
Honestly,
song?
Yeah.
You could try that.
That would be a great challenge.
Honestly, I thought of asp, and then I was like, I can't think of more...
Yeah,
wasp and asp don't even wasp. It doesn't even rhyme.
It does. I do kind of wonder if there's.
It's like rhyming with orange. Like
right.
We're gonna do that. All right.
That's Eminem's next single. Is the
rip Eminem. You know what I mean? The death of Slim Shady.
But yeah, from there, it's revealed that the dreams are emanating from an evil wizard called Gaznak, who lives on a comet that shows up every 230 years.
which is
sick.
Awesome. It's awesome. It's like the coolest thing ever.
Which again, okay. So here's the other big check mark for me on the list of is this sword and sorcery?
Yeah.
Because a big part of sword and sorcery is like, is this fucking sweet?
Yeah.
Then it's sword and sorcery.
Yeah.
It's not like evil wizard that lives on a comet.
Yeah. Like he doesn't.
That's pretty sweet.
He doesn't sleep in a cave and comes out every 23. No, he's in the orb. Bro.
Yeah. No, he's on a comet.
Coming around.
Yeah.
What did he get up to? Like, there's other like spears maybe he's messing with, but it's his time now. He's like, okay, let's
Absolutely.
send them Satan dreams.
Sick.
This is where it's obviously in moments you can see the Robert E. Howard muscular like attack battle sword and sorcery, but this obviously in style is very different.
Yeah.
There are a lot of this where like this could be a Fawford and Grey Mouser story.
100%.
Yeah.
100%.
Especially the humor and the silliness.
Yeah,
obviously the writing
fits.
style is a little
There's some
different.
great
Fits all of
silliness
it.
coming up.
I can't wait for a couple of them. Yeah.
So yeah, okay. So yes, so evil wizard on comet
But Evil Wizard on Comet, and they're
sending
like
bad dreams.
sending
Badass.
bad dreams. There's like, what can we do? And then one of the things that's very fairy tale about it, they're just like, well, this guy can only be beaten by the sword Sacnoth, and then
Because we all know that.
Right.
Yeah.
the mayor, the Lord's son, Leothric, who ends up being the main character of the
Our
story,
champion.
He's like, they're like, oh, well, the only way you can, this is the magician and the Lord talking to him. The only way you can defeat him was with Sacnoth. He's like, well, where can I go get Sacnoth? He's like, well, it's a piece of metal protecting the spine of this crocodile dragon.
Again,
Sweet.
so awesome.
So sweet. Yeah.
and the
it's not just a dragon. It's a crocodile.
It's a crocodile dragon.
It's a crocodile dragon
with
who
a
has
fucking sword for a back.
for a back, whose back is steel and belly is iron, and then has steel eyes. It's just very awesome.
And also,
so awesome.
also cannot be beaten.
Cannot be beaten.
Save for.
Save for his lead soft metal nose.
Yeah.
No,
But
not even that. Save for.
You have to hit it with a stick.
Yeah.
But that's just
to start-
kind of
to
annoying.
keep
But
him
the
away
only
from
way he
starve.
can
He
die
has to
is
starve.
to
Yeah.
starve.
Starve
Yeah.
him for 3 days.
Which that to me, that was the part that I was like, this might be the first story, but I don't think I've seen anything quite like that in any other thing.
Yeah.
Like the only way to beat it is to starve its ass to death. And the way to do that is to annoy him for days until he's like, I'm hungry.
I love the detail too, where like if you can't use a sword on his nose because then you'll just knock it off.
Yeah,
and
just
it's
sort of
brass
like-
underneath, and you can't break it.
yeah, so you got to keep
You
the
have
nose
to keep-
intact, so you got to get a
Yeah.
stick.
You gotta mess with it
You
just,
really
just
annoying
enough.
him. You
Yeah.
just-
Well,
annoying him.
that's what I love. We get to this point, and he gets his stick, and he's attacking he's not even attacking, but he's hitting the crocodile
just like,
dragon.
bang, bang,
And it's
bang,
this big crocodile dragon is essentially just like,
Yeah.
no,
Yeah. Yeah. It's
no,
it's like a ruler on the wrist, like
no.
knock it off.
So
That's enough.
this whole sequence is good. Also, the crocodile dragon's name is Thera Gavarug.
Yeah.
Badass again.
Also great.
100% sword and sorcery. The more I think about it, the more angry that I am that somebody would say that this is not sword and sorcery.
No, I agree.
I'm getting unreasonably angry about it.
So then he annoys him long enough to where he's like, I'm too hungry.
Well, and we also we left out that it's revealed that his food is men.
Yeah.
Although
no,
he
he's-
later
yeah.
maybe eats a frog. He's gonna maybe eat a frog, and then he's like, no, can't
No.
let him eat the frog.
yeah.
But what I loved,
But also like his food is men, duh.
and the way,
Right.
So
Yeah.
the way, I know, right?
Yeah, it's
not
like,
really,
and
his
guess
food
what?
is men.
He eats a man. He's a dragon, of course
One
he does.
other thing I did love is they're like he lives in these marshes, and there's a town, and they're like basically there's like and this is revealed sort of throughout the fight with him, that like basically people used to run away from him, but he would always chase them down and eat them.
Oh, yeah, so they have like a ritual sacrifice, yeah.
Yes, it's a sacrifice, but basically they all come out and then he chooses one, and it's
Yeah.
just like thinking about this town. We're like, honestly, I was like, someone should adapt this.
Yeah.
You could actually do something very cool with this,
like the Hunger Games.
with like a giant dragon crocodile coming into town and just being like picking somebody. I was
Yeah,
like,
yeah.
oh man. But that's where like, but it's that
But
detail
I feel like that theme is done quite a bit in Sword and Sorcery, where they
Yeah.
have the virgin sacrifice to
No,
the
it's true.
dragon. Like
For sure.
true.
you know.
But also, it's meted out in this mostly lighthearted tone to where if you're not really like thinking about what you're reading, you can
Yeah.
just kind of breeze by that, and then it's like, oh wait, what? They're like,
This is their culture.
Yeah, they have to get together And it's not just sending, the Virgin, throwing her into the volcano.
No.
It's the town gets together
You
and
all
he
get
comes
out there
up.
and you hope he doesn't pick you.
Yeah. Wild.
Oh, it's Friday night again. You know what that means? Dinner time.
So this is what I had just happened to come across this again.
You're good.
But this is what what was his name? Theo
Theoragatharug.
If you're listening or watching, but look this up. Look up the largest saltwater crocodile ever, and that was a real saltwater crocodile.
Oh wow!
So
we gotta edit that in.
That's I'll put a picture in. But this is so you'll see this if you're watching the video. But that was a real crocodile,
giant.
and that's
I'm
even
picturing
smaller
something-
than the Dinosuchus, which was a dinosaur era crocodile. But that's where my brain went immediately, because I had just seen those pictures again of this a crocodile dragon.
Yeah. One thing I liked about the story too is that even though it moves really quickly, there's not a lot of trudging on the road to places, but it still takes a moment to say. And he's got to starve him for 3 days, but he took provisions for 5. And there's there's always a little detail that actually grounds the story.
Yeah. No, that was
even
a
though
nice
it's
touch.
a fairy tale kind of whimsy. There's a lot of moments like that. But then he's basically beating him with a stick. Theoragatharug keeps he gets to the time of day he would normally eat him, and also it reveals he wouldn't eat him all at once. He would eat part of him, and then the rest at noon, and then the rest at
Yes.
He's a responable crocodile
Yes.
dragon.
He's trying to watch
He's
his
whoa,
figure.
I'm not gonna gorge myself.
Yeah,
I gotta have
absolutely.
3 square meals a day.
But basically, he keeps getting mad. He's really mad once it's his time to eat, and he's not allowed to eat. And then,
as are we all.
and then basically, it says over the course of 3 days, Leothric would drive him back during the day, and then he would be driven back to the town through the night. There's a frog, which we mentioned, that's near. He keeps him away from the frog because I guess he also eats frogs.
Which was one of the meats that I ate the other day
Yes.
at Tennessee
Callback.
Wildman and Cryptid Con.
Callback.
That's
Frog
right.
legs. It was great.
When you're in a pickle, you eat a frog.
We're getting better at this radio thing,
We
gentlemen.
are. But then, and then eventually though he succeeds, and then the people are so excited they throw a dance party, but they don't
Hell
make
yeah.
any noise for some reason. It's a silent
Silent dance party.
Silent
It's like one of
disco.
those- It's one of those raves,
Yeah,
those
I know.
silent raves where you just have
Silent
the
disco,
headphones
yeah.
on.
I don't know why they're being quiet, but they're being quiet.
Well, living in a town where you have to kill someone every weekend, it's like
Maybe just
well,
Maybe
let's
they're just
dance,
naturally
but
quiet.
Let's
Yeah.
not get too crazy. You know what I mean?
I will say, as funny as the joke of no, hey, stop,
Yeah.
nope. As funny as that is, the fact that Leothric is he brings provisions with him, he's eating something, but he's staying awake and,
Yeah.
for
and
three straight days.
Yeah, for fighting a crocodile dragon for 3 straight days.
Yes.
So
It's a feat.
we're establishing too. This is badass.
Yes.
He's a badass as well.
Yes. And I love that the story actually underplays that.
Yes.
You have to again, and this is actually something I've found reading Dunsany is you actually have to think. You have to he says a thing, and you have to actually think about it for it to be whoa.
Yeah.
Obviously, it's all there. But if you just breeze past it, you're like, well, Leothric, he didn't even do anything. It's no, actually, he fought a crocodile for 3 straight days.
For 3 straight days.
It's crazy.
And couldn't even really fight it. All he could do is smack it on the nose with a
Yes.
stick. So it's not even like he had,
Because you can't kill it.
Yeah.
It has to starve to death.
Yeah.
Yeah.
So
Which is a great.
and not
handicap.
become a meal himself.
Yeah. So
So-
then he does eventually Theoragatharug keels over and dies. They melt down his body. They get Sacnoth the blade. He sharpens it into an actual sword using one of the eyes, which I guess because the sword's basically impenetrable, you sharpen it the one time and then you're good, I guess.
Yeah, it's just sharp.
And then they take
forever.
the other eye and put it on the hilt.
because it can see for you.
Yeah, to be
Which is
so it'll
awesome.
watch your back.
Yes.
So sick.
So sick.
Like
So
literally.
sick.
Yeah.
And then from there, I think it moves pretty quickly. He gets to the fortress, and it's in a marsh, and it's a giant mountain of a fortress.
And it's impenetrable.
And it's impenetrable.
Sacnoth.
Save for
That's
Sacnoth.
the best
Save
thing.
for Sacnoth.
He gets there, and it actually says on the outside of the fortress in brass letters, "The Fortress Unvanquishable, save for Sacnoth."
Yeah.
They went
Eat
out of
shit,
their
nerds. You can't get in here. You don't have Sacnoth.
Unless you have Sacnoth.
But that's the
Unless you have
thing.
Sacnoth.
They had to admit the weakness.
Yeah, I
we
know.
cannot be beaten. Well, I mean, you could if you had that, but you can't.
And then there's
hilarious.
when he shows, is it when he gets in the first time, and it's all the dragons barked, and then a cry rang up, and then it's and then a woman screamed, and then her father heard her from hell or something.
Yeah, I was like, whoa.
What is
but that one, and then right after that, and then he woke up all the vampires.
Right, all the vampires fluttering above him. I was like, what? Dragons barking,
He was
father
so
from hell.
loud. She cried. Her dad heard her in hell, and he woke up all the vampires.
What is happening?
100% sword and sorcery.
I agree.
You know.
Oh my gosh.
That was my.
And you got grinning gargoyles too, because he pulls Sacnoth out.
They
And the
smiled.
gargoyles
I
are
thought
like,
it was like,
Oh.
they're like, oh shit, it's going down. Save for Sacnoth is today.
oh my gosh,
Yeah.
I love it.
And then he gets into that goofy thing where he's like with all the, and they do like Chinese whispers back to the guy. they're like, what? You can't beat us. Oh yeah, Sacnoth. Hey. And then they run away.
Literally, it's like 100
guys.
people deep.
Yeah,
100 people deep. Both sides.
Yeah.
And the messages would come up one side and then down the other side.
And he just sees
It's
it
so
fall
good.
like dominoes where everyone's just like, oh,
And then he also
the guy with
like,
Sacnoth's
there's
here.
camels. There's guys on camels
Yeah.
at some point.
Yeah.
Which is.
And sabers from he referenced a specific like actual real world Middle Eastern country.
place. Yeah.
yeah.
I'm blanking on
remember
which
which
one it
one
was, but yeah, kind of real world
There's some,
moment
there's
here.
some little. There are.
But that's kind of typical for fantasy of
It is.
the time.
Yeah.
Having it be what I guess
a-
you'd call it like low fantasy now, but like
Yeah.
fantasy set in this world.
the real world, but then also like part of it's fake, kind of doing both. Yeah, doing both. But
Yeah.
so then he also fights a giant spider.
He does.
And I'm curious because the spider talks. It has lank hair,
Yeah.
and then it's weaving webs, and he keeps cutting the webs.
And he like should not be able to cut them.
And then, but he keeps seeing the evil of the eyes, and I couldn't help but think of both Shelob and Ungoliant.
For sure.
And I wondered if this is where
Tolkien got
the
that.
Tolkien.
Yeah.
I mean, obviously spiders are
Is that where the eye was seeing for him though, to like know
the
where
eye.
to smote?
The eye did that a lot, so I can't remember.
I think that if I remember correctly, I think we're coming up on one of the times that it specifically saved him, and I think that was when he was fighting the dragons here
Yes.
shortly.
Yeah, yeah.
So then he fights that. He goes through
But I think you're right. I'm sorry.
No, you're good.
Wasn't her name? Did the spider have a name?
I would have to look.
I can't remember, but I thought maybe it was something similar to Ungoliant, but maybe I'm projecting because it definitely that's what struck me as well, was like perhaps this was an influence on Tolkien's giant spiders as well.
I definitely think it was, but I don't remember the name of the spider. Well,
Which is interesting because giant spiders, because of Tolkien, are a fantasy trope
yes.
now throughout D&D and any fantasy game, like giant rats, giant spiders, you're gonna find them.
Yeah.
Yep.
And so that's kind of interesting too. That then in that case, here's an actual further beginning of that trope.
Yeah.
Potentially, perhaps.
So then from there, he ends up in a room, I think, and we may be forgetting some things, but then he's in a room of women, and it actually says that
the weirdly beautiful,
beautiful women.
Weirdly beautiful.
But he was like, and he's like, I would have,
I would have stayed longer, but they weren't.
They
human.
weren't real
Yeah.
human
Yeah.
women. Yeah, and he was like, if they were human, he might have been foiled, but they had like flames for eyes. But then he says,
that would freak me out. You know?
Yeah.
Then there's a moment there where he says it was revealed that these were the fevered dreams of, which I guess is why they have flame eyes, but they were the fevered dreams of Gaznak, who we later is fully revealed that he's been sleeping. And there's some really interesting stuff with like dreams in this story, especially when we get to the end. But wanted to make a note of that. But then he gets
all
through
based
there.
on that,
He basically, but basically the theme of a lot of this part is he tells them also he has Sacnoth and they run off.
Yeah, that's not it. Because everything is fine, save for Sacnoth.
Yep.
So then
And doesn't
from
he
there,
just like cut his way into places? Is like, and he just walked through the hole he cut with Sacnoth.
Yeah, that does happen, and then he also
Because it's a fortress.
and he's doing that a lot with the spider, where he's cutting all the webs.
Yeah, for sure.
But then I believe the next point is he comes into the top of the tower, and there's musicians running around, and there's all sorts of stuff. He's hearing music, and then several dragons come to attack him at this point. One of them just runs off.
Yeah. Can we presume that these are the dragons that were barking earlier?
I would guess that they were.
And I don't recall it ever specifying, but unless there's a whole bunch of dragons, that was kind of my assumption, was these are the ones he
I
was
also
hearing
love
earlier.
the dragons bark in this story.
Yes. I know, barking dragons is awesome.
Barking dragons.
And then so the main dragon he fights, there is a couple. One runs off, there's another one, but then the main dragon he fights is Wong Bongarok.
Oh, yeah.
Another great 100% pure uncut sword and sorcery name.
Yeah.
Wong Bongarok.
And then the main way the Eye of Sacnoth helps him is the fire. The dragon breathes fire out, but that was its not its main thing. It does its tail scorpion style over the top.
Yeah.
And then it makes the point that the sword identifies that this is its means of attack, and instead of cutting the tail off, which would then still have it projectiling at you, it
blocks
the flat
it,
of the blade blocks it, and then. In a little bit there, he dices Wong Bongarok up, which he said he was the most trusted servant of Gaznak, and he ate steaming, flaming bits of man from his table.
Well, and again with the barking thing, it was like very much a dog, because I think that was
dog.
He talked about that Wong Bongarok had literally just come back from like licking on his master's hand.
Yeah. No, that's absolutely what it is.
Dog dragons.
So then from there he goes in, and then the Gaznak is asleep, listening to the music of he's got evil musicians playing music in his sleep, giving him dreams and stuff.
Hell yeah!
And there's bells going
weird.
in here too.
One of those dudes that falls asleep listening to metal music.
I need something evil.
And then I believe he tells them, "I've got Sacnoth and I've got to do stuff with Gaznak," and then they scurry off. And then it says Gaznak sat up, looking directly at him. And they begin to fight. But it turns out he's got the second most powerful sword in the world.
Yeah, that's right.
And armor that can actually Sacnoth doesn't hurt. But he's got skin showing at his neck and his hands.
Yeah. But none of that is the wild part.
No.
The wild part is they start sword fighting, and Leothric swings at to take his head off. And dude grabs himself by the hair. This was one of those where I rewind. What? He grabs himself by the hair and pulls his own head up.
And the sword passes through the open space.
Yeah. And then he just pops it back on.
Yeah. He's a magician. He got tricks.
Wild.
I love it so much. Because it's wait, he's cutting his head. Wait, it's
Can you imagine being in Leothric's position though? Aha, I've got you now.
Yeah.
Huh?
Yeah.
He's I can pull my head off.
It's very
very
labyrinth.
Yeah.
It's very
absolutely.
labyrinth.
Very labyrinth, very Alice in Wonderland.
Yes, there's a lot of this is very Alice in Wonderland.
Yeah, it's very absurdist fantasy.
Yeah.
But yeah, and he does that 2 or 3 times.
2 or 3 times, and he can't find him, and then he's losing. So he's losing his armor slowly because the sword will break Leothric's armor. So he's actually in a state when finally he does another stroke. He goes to lift his head, but instead of cutting under the head again, he slices at the wrist.
Yeah, he fakes him out he's going for a body shot, and then takes a punch to the jaw instead.
And then he said when he cuts the wrist, then I guess once it's let go, it's probably how the magic works. Then just blood just gushes from the open from the open space, and then he falls down dead. It's also funny because he's got a beard, so he's lifting up, and then he's cutting I think
his hair.
Yeah,
which is also funny. But then the fortress just vanishes.
Yeah,
and there's just an open hole in the ground and a dead body there. And Sacnoth is vanquished, and then the story basically pretty quickly peters out until we get this little coda, which is Leothric went home, but then some people say that it was just a fever. That took over the city, Alathurion, and that Leothric went into the marsh and was feverish and then came back. But then it says, but then some people say that this town didn't even exist at all. And then he's but who can say what has happened deep into the recesses of time? We can't even know anything. And then the story ends.
Sword and sorcery.
It's interesting though, because it's there's actually there's a little bit of fantasy deconstruction there at the end, which is funny because it's the
very
first
beginning.
One.
Yeah,
it's
the very beginning of
of
what we call fantasy.
This is all bullshit, anyways. Right at the end.
Yeah. No, I absolutely loved it.
That's what goes with this. None of this is real. I mean, in all of our interviews and talks too, it's been It would be cool if this was real. That's why we like it.
Yeah,
It's not. We don't think it is.
But it is. It is actually real. That's the thing. It's
every town has a magician.
Yeah, of course. It's in the title.
Yeah.
But yeah, and it is. There's sword. There's a guy with a sword, accomplishing a task, fighting a sorcerer. I mean, like it's.
But I mean, it ticks every box except like you've got hero, swords, magic sword, like special weaponry.
Yep.
Evil sorcerer, crazy names.
Yep.
Like just
vampires,
badass things. Yeah, crazy
that
creatures.
don't do anything except wake up.
That was I was like, what a cool little. That's one of those great sword and sorcery things too. Of like these little tidbits that are just sprinkled in, that give you a little bit of a taste of the world, and leave you wanting more, but also give you a flavor for where you're at and what's going on.
Yeah, totally.
I loved it. I absolutely loved it. It was. I think we've read a lot of older stuff. I think if you've not read much 19th and early 20th century literature, it might be a challenge.
Sure.
But it's also very short.
It is. And
it's very fast-paced.
It's more accessible than other similar literature, I think.
For sure.
So if you're wanting to get into some older stuff, it's great. Also, some of the stuff is dark, but like a lot of these I've read, you could also read to kids.
Yeah.
Because they're just going to breeze past some of the darker stuff.
Well, it reminded me in that regard of one of his contemporaries of George MacDonald.
Yes. Yeah.
In that regard, one of the other, early, I guess what you would call maybe proto-modern fantasy. Yeah. Kind of fairy tale authors. That kind of flavor. Yeah. In some ways. But again, I can't see any version of this universe where this is not a sword and sorcery story.
I agree.
It ticks all those boxes. Maybe, I guess you could argue perhaps that Leothric is not quite as fleshed out as Conan is.
We get a little less, and again, I think that's even this with the style that he's writing in, and I think that Dunsany writes in general. There's not a lot of interior emotions.
Well, I think you could also make the argument perhaps that Leothric isn't really the point.
No.
He's not
I was
really
about to say, I think if it's sword
I was going to say, it's really Sacnoth.
Sacnoth is in the title. It's the main
versus
thing.
Gaznak.
Gaznak, yeah.
This was really Sacnoth versus Gaznak. Like that's which really literally is sword versus sorcery, sword and sorcery.
Yeah.
Because like Leothric, it could be any hero wielding the sword.
That can wield it.
It's the sword itself.
He does prove his worth.
He does, absolutely.
Theragalrug.
But it could be like, you could insert hero here.
No, it's fair.
And
it's fair.
Because I think it really is, the essence is Sacnoth versus Gaznak.
Which is
and
diluted all the way down. That sword and sorcery.
I could see the right artist could do a really interesting film of this story. I think, if you did the absurdity just right. I'm almost thinking of something like Fantasy Brazil.
Sure. Like Terry Gilliam doing it.
Yeah.
I also think it would be really cool as like a Leica stop motion film.
Sure.
Yeah.
Yes.
Kind of like what what's the one they did with the samurai
I can't think of it.
Kubo. I think it's Kubo. Anyways, Kubo and the Two Strings.
Yeah.
But something like that would be
That'd be really
sick.
Cool.
Or like we always go back to
Robert Eggers.
It would be Robert Eggers, but also the other thing we always go back to is an anime. It would be pretty sick. It would be a pretty sick anime.
It would be a great Robert Eggers though.
It would be a wild Robert Eggers film.
Robert Eggers doing bizarro, terrifying fairy tale.
Yeah, no, that would be sick. It would be right up his alley.
We'll see after Nosferatu.
So
I gotta get his email.
Yeah, we're just gonna get him his email. We're gonna send him this story.
It's free, man. I'm sure no one emails some stuff.
Yeah, absolutely not. So this was great. I loved it.
Yeah,
I'm glad. Fantastic. It's fun. We've done a little bit we've done the classics in Sword and Sorcery. We've done a little bit of dabbling with some people still kind of doing forays into the genre, and then we've covered the The very first one.
Foundations,
Yeah. Well, I was going to say that's if you're following along on the podcast, that's a kind of a fun back and forth between last episode and this.
Sure.
Not that Eye of Sanu is the Gift of the Omen, is not the most recent sword and sorcery story ever written.
No, but it is
relatively recent. It's one of the new crop of sword and sorcery authors.
Mm-hmm.
And comparing that to the first one, that's fun, and you can really see the lineage, and the skeleton of this subgenre that is still alive and well today, and that was so much fun then, and still so much fun reading the stories that were written, over a century ago.
I love it.
Totally.
So, moral of the story: sword and sorcery is great.
Sword and sorcery is great.
Absolutely.
Read more sword and sorcery. Write more sword and sorcery. And closing thoughts. Great discussion as always.
Yeah. No.
Indeed.
No closing thoughts beyond this story was great.
Yeah. I want to see more of Dunsany's vampires.
Hell yeah.
Yeah. I don't know if he does more vampires.
Maybe
Probably.
What if he just mentions them in every story? Like
they get waken up in every single story.
And there was a vampire.
yeah.
And he woke the vampires.
And they were so loud. They woke the vampires.
And the vampires are just like, God damn it, can we not? We just want to sleep.
We want to sleep.
These heroes keep coming in and waking us up. We just want to
I
sleep.
don't want blood. I just want some shut eye. You know what I mean? Like.
All right. Well, this has been episode 13 of Under Towers Podcast. I'm Steven.
I'm Daniel.
Sam.
Check us out on all the social media bullshits. Leave us a like and a comment if you feel so inclined. It helps out with the algorithm. Check out Horsebread. Listen to Hole Dweller. That's our music at the start and end. And read Lord Dunsany.
Woo!
Namari, everybody.